Hello and welcome to Global Lens. Over the next 30 minutes, we put the spotlight on all the top stories from around the world. I'm Parikshit Luthra. These are top global headlines we are tracking. Government sources say India buying Russian oil is critical for maintaining price stability, even as it emerges as an irritant in Washington-New Delhi trade talks. Add that Russian crude oil has not been sanctioned. A senior Trump aide says it is not acceptable for India to continue financing Russia's war in Ukraine by purchasing oil from them. Israeli forces pound Gaza, killing 40, including 28 seekers. Over 22,000 humanitarian trucks wait at the border, but only 84 have made it through since July 27th. Aid agencies warn that without an immediate ceasefire, Gaza faces irreversible humanitarian collapse. Tesla grants CEO Elon Musk shares worth $29 billion to keep him on board, describes the grant as a first step good faith payment after his $50 billion pay package from 2018 that was struck down by a Delaware court last year. Straight to the market action. Global markets claw back some of Friday's losses as investors weigh the impact of President Donald Trump's tariffs and the weak US jobs data. Here's how the Asian markets fared. Indian benchmark indices started the week on a healthy note. Sensex and Nifty gained over 0.5% each. South Korea's Kospi and Hong Kong's Hang Seng gained nearly 1%, while China's Shanghai Composite also ended in the green. Japan's Nikkei fell by more than 500 points. European and American stocks also edged higher. Our top focus this evening. US President Donald Trump has announced sweeping 25% tariffs on all goods originating from India, along with an additional unspecified penalty over India's continued oil trade with Russia. The new tariffs will take effect from August 7th, but there is still no clarity on the scope or nature of penalties. The move adds fresh uncertainty to prospects of a bilateral trade deal between Washington and New Delhi. In response, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken a defiant stance. Addressing a rally on Saturday, he urged citizens to support locally made products, saying whatever we buy, there should be only one scale. We will buy those things which have been made with the sweat of Indians. The message aligns with his government's ongoing Make in India initiative. In Washington's strongest criticism yet, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller accused India effectively financing Russia's war in Ukraine. He added that President Trump considers India's actions unacceptable. Despite the tensions, India is significantly ramping up crude oil imports from the US. In FY26, volumes are expected to rise by 150% year-on-year, with imports already up 114% in just the first quarter. The share of US crude in India's overall import basket jumped from 3% to 8% in July FY26. Government sources in New Delhi have defended India's purchase of Russian oil, calling it critical for maintaining domestic price stability. They emphasized that all international protocols were followed and noted that India's increased Russian oil imports helped stabilize global markets after Brent crude spiked in 2022 over fears of supply disruptions. Joining us now to discuss this further is Mukesh Aghi, President, US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. Mr. Aghi, thank you very much for joining us. Very strong statements coming in from Washington, D.C. about India's purchase of Russian oil. How do you think India should deal with this kind of criticism in this tariff war?
Well, India has to do what's good for India. And it's not just India which is buying Russian oil. You look at China, which is buying a much bigger volume. You look at the Europeans, their consumption of CNG has not gone down. In fact, it has gone up. So I think it is in the sovereign interest of India to buy what needs to buy. And I think there is criticism, then I think India has to deal with that.
Right. But do you think by making statements whereby the Indian government is saying that we are going to stand by our national interest, that we are going to continue buying Russian oil because it suits our national interest, we have to look at geopolitics, we need to look at the market situation. Do you think these statements will further irk the Trump administration?
Well, sometime I think you need to basically go do what you need to do without announcing it. I think it's important that the relationship, which is very important, critical for both countries, is much broader and deeper than statement coming out of the White House. But more important is I think we need to figure out how to basically manage those statements coming out. And I think that's where Delhi can play a little more proactive role to ensure that you're able to communicate more with the White House And while the administration seems to be moving in a very positive manner with India, you look at the business community still investing in India. The trade is going up between the two countries. The students coming into India has gone up. And you look at the people to people, it's very strong. So I think the relationship is still deep, broader. We just need to manage the rhetoric. And I think that's where the art of diplomacy is going to come in.
Right. As a top industry chamber, what is your big worry and recommendation to both sides?
Well, we need to bring the rhetoric down, both from the White House and also from Delhi. It is important that we are able to tone that down. And what we are seeing is, as you mentioned in an early broadcast, that India procurement of US energy has gone up dramatically, and its procurement from Russia is coming down. But it does have an impact. You have to understand, India basically imports around 2 million barrels of oil every day. And it cannot switch overnight to the Middle Eastern and other countries, because that's going to drive the global price of oil up and up and up, which has an inflationary impact in India. So I think India needs to work closely with the administration to see where it serves India's interest and serves US interest and find the right balance.
I would also like to ask you about secondary tariffs. Do you think those secondary tariffs are going to come on countries like India and China? And that's a given?
I don't think it's a given because we have seen the president backtrack on a lot of earlier statement, and a secondary tariff will basically will have an impact on the relationship substantially, and I would say dramatically. Uh, so we need to, again, as I said, is figure out, and as India keeps on moving its purchase of energy away from Russia into other geography, that threat kind of dwindles down itself. But at the end of the day, you have to understand you have a nation of 1.4 billion people, is a sovereign nation. It has to decide what's good for its people. And on that basis, I think, but at the same time, we need to bring in more art of diplomacy, art of communication, to tone down the rhetoric on both sides.
What do you think is the missing link right now? From India's side, we gave a very good deal. This is what government sources indicate to us. But what is the Trump administration actually seeking? What is the sticking point? Is it only Russia's oil? Is it agriculture, dairy, all of it? Do they want more investments? What would it take, according to you, to clinch the deal?
I believe while the administration between or the trade negotiators have come to a terms of agreement, I think a call between the president and the prime minister will clinch the deal. Now they have their own limitations, which is understandable, but at this stage, I think it's important that there is some kind of a communication happening directly between the prime minister and the president to ensure that they're able to serve each other's country's interest in a proactive manner. So I would say that while all the ducks are lined up, a call will make a big, big difference.
Right. What is your worry? At the current levels, how will US India business and trade be impacted? And if more tariff and penalties were to come India's way, what could that lead to?
Well, you look at a 25% tariff. India is higher than Japan, higher than Indonesia, and higher than Vietnam. And when we're looking at de-risking supply chain from China into India, that becomes challenging itself. And I think from an India perspective, the government can recalibrate some of the PLI schemes, focusing on incentive, lowering the taxes to some of these exporters, and manage that 25% tariff in a proactive manner. Because when you look at the investments, they're still going up from the US companies in India. When you look at the global capability centers, they're building more and more in every aspect. So India does become a critical sourcing for the US companies. It also becomes a critical market opportunity for US companies. And I've cited several times how Apple started almost 4 years ago from scratch. And now 44% of the phone in the US are coming from India, but Apple also has gained domestic market. So I think it's a combination of the two which we need to figure out and take this forward between US and India.
Right. My final question to you would be, what is at stake in case this relationship goes down because of these trade differences? What is the long-term impact that both countries must keep in mind if this trade deal were to not work out?
Well, you have to understand that the relationship is broader than just trade itself. We have, as I said, 5+ million Indian Americans who are basically in very influential positions. We have over 300,000 Indian students. There is a technology partnership, there's a military partnership, there's geopolitical impact. But at the end of the day, we also have to understand and respect that India is a sovereign nation. India has to basically maintain its strategic autonomy. That's the path it has taken. So we'll have to basically work together both with the US administration and also with the Indian administration to find the right balance. Will it destroy the relationship if India and the US can't agree on the tariff rates? I don't think so. This is not the end of the world between the two countries, because I think a 25% tariff, India can still manage its exports, can still manage dealing with the sourcing aspect by proactively bringing more reform, making much more open economy itself. So I would say that yes, India has to deal with the Trump administration. India has to manage the tariff. Let's see, the negotiators are coming to India from the US side to see where they can find the right balance. So we are not giving up hope in every aspect. We believe that the future is bright between the two countries. We just need to keep on pushing them together to look at what's greater interest for India and the United States.
And as you pointed out, better communication, less rhetoric will possibly be the key to that. Thank you very much, Mr. Aghi, for joining us on Global Lens on CNBC TV 18 Prime. A quick look now at news in brief. Ukraine's military has said that it used drones to target several cities inside Russia, including refineries, an airfield and electronics plant. One of the drone attacks sparked a major fire at an oil depot in Sochi in southern Russia. Ukraine also said that Russian forces launched 76 drones and 7 missiles across cities. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett has defended US President Donald Trump's decision to fire head of Labor Statistics Bureau. Speaking to CNBC, Hassett said that there needs to be a fresh set of eyes at the Labor Statistics Bureau to modernize the US jobs data. He added that the data has to be something that market can make big bets on. Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has arrived in India for a 5-day visit as the two countries mark 75 years of diplomatic relations. This is the first trip by a Filipino head of state to India since 2007. President Marcos will hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister Modi and meet President Draupadi Murmu. Ahead of the trip, India and Philippines staged their first joint sail and naval exercises in the disputed South China Sea. Shares of auto major BYD declined in trade after the company's July sales fell nearly 10% month-on-month. The Chinese EV giant delivered over 3.4 lakh vehicles globally during the month, marking gains of less than 1% on an annual basis. This is the company's first monthly decline in 6 months, causing investors to worry. Over 3,000 Boeing defense workers went on strike in Missouri and Illinois. The workers are trying to seek a new contract. This move comes after union members at operations rejected the company's latest offer over pay, work schedules and pensions. The union last went on strike nearly 30 years ago, where then stopped working for 99 days. It's time for a short break on Global Lens. Coming up on the other side, we speak to Stephen Ezell of Information Technology and Innovation Foundation to understand the implications of US tariff on the broader India-US relationship and its long-term goals for technology, innovation and AI. Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was among the first few world leaders to visit US and meet US President Donald Trump as he commenced his second presidential term this year. It was during that mega event that both nations launched a roadmap to bolster India-US relations. This blueprint spanned across defense, trade, commerce, energy security, and most importantly, technology and innovation, to strengthen tech capabilities. Both leaders unveiled Trust, also known as Transforming the Relationship Utilizing Strategic Technology initiative. This initiative was set up to build emerging technologies in defense, AI, semiconductors, quantum, biotechnology, energy, and space. Both leaders committed to work with private players to put forward a roadmap to accelerate AI infrastructure by the end of the year. That's not all. It aimed at identifying financing constraints, building, powering, and connecting large-scale US-origin AI infrastructure in India, with US threatening India with tariffs and penalty. Will these long-term goals fall apart, or will both nations keep the tariff war and such initiatives apart? I spoke to Stephen Ezell, Vice President of Global Innovation Policy at Information Technology and Innovation Foundation. I started by asking him about the immediate priorities for India and the US in innovation and cutting-edge technologies.
Well, the U.S.-India Trust, Transforming the Relationship Utilizing Strategic Technology initiatives, is critical as the countries seek to deepen their strategic relationship by leveraging modern digital technologies to advance economic growth and national security. So there's tremendous opportunities for the United States and India to collaborate around innovation in areas like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, biopharmaceuticals, clean energy, critical minerals. There's a range of technology areas where U.S. and Indian companies and researchers can come together to develop the products and services of the future that will drive U.S., Indian, and Indian economic growth and employment growth.
Right. Stephen, there is a lot that India and US can do together. But currently, we've been looking at months of tension between the two countries. And now you have the US president imposing a 25% tariff on India and saying that penalties are coming India's way. And he's used very harsh language. This must be a trading negotiation. But how does this impact the momentum we had in our technology partnership?
Well, I think the most important thing to focus on and remember are the broader strategic objectives in this relationship. You know, one of the goals articulated in the trust effort was Mission 500, to double the extent of U.S.-India trade to $500 billion by the end of this decade. Now, certainly, tariffs could impede some of that growth. I think we should interpret the Trump position as a negotiating position. I think what we're seeing is that with most countries, the Trump administration is settling on 15% tariffs with places like the European Union, Japan, and Korea. I think we will get to that level with India. So while there will sometimes be bumps in the road with any relationship, I would encourage U.S. and Indian policymakers to keep their eye on the long-term prize. And that's the opportunity to collaborate in these strategic industries so we can drive much greater levels of long-term economic growth on a prosperous and collaborative basis between our two nations.
Stephen, what do we stand to lose if we do not collaborate on future technologies, including artificial intelligence, right now? If we allow the technology and innovation partnership to derail, what are the implications?
Well, artificial intelligence especially is a rapidly evolving technology that is going to transform virtually every field of the modern economy and the modern society. Globally, artificial intelligence is expected to add $20 trillion to the global economy by the end of the decade. For India, that growth is expected to be $1.2 to $1.5 trillion, with the opportunity to create as many as 2.3 million new jobs in India. So the opportunity is now, but there's a race among nations to achieve first mover advantage, to be the first who can leverage and take advantage and gain prosperity from these emerging technologies. So that's why it's important that the U.S. and India not miss this moment to work together to develop this AI ecosystem of the future. and across a number of areas, such as ensuring that India has access to the AI compute power and the AI infrastructure it needs, developing common interoperable standards, working together to ensure AI safety and cybersecurity. It's really important that the U.S. and Indian governments and U.S. and Indian companies work now so that we shape this radical AI and digital transformation to the benefit of both of our societies.
How do you see private sector partnerships between India and US being forged in the current environment? How do you see investments flowing between the two countries? What are some of the regulatory barriers which you feel that India must do away with?
Well, certainly India relies on access to cutting-edge U.S. semiconductors at this point. India needs at least 34,000 high-end GPU units to fulfill its India AI mission goal of developing a national India language, India-specific large language model. So there's important collaboration around cloud computing centers, data centers, even the undersea cables that we need to move data seamlessly across the oceans to support data-driven AI innovation. So from a policy perspective, some regulatory issues or regulatory hurdles that need to be addressed to ensure that we can take advantage of the potential of AI first pertain to data governance. It's important that we put in place policies that enable data with the appropriate privacy protections to move seamlessly across the United States and India so that companies can have access to the data sets they need to train their AI models and build insights from them. So data governance standards will be critical. Another area of policy pertains to ensuring that we don't impose customs duties on e-commerce transactions. It's important that we not tariff when data such as semiconductor design, semiconductor blueprints move across our country. So preserving the WTO e-commerce customs duty moratorium should be imperative for both Indian and U.S. policymakers. India needs to invest more in scientific research. Its national R&D intensity is just 0.64%. Investing more in AI research will be critical. Lastly, AI is going to impact at least 40% of jobs. So policymakers and educators have an important role in ensuring that we have widespread digital literacy, that we empower individuals with the knowledge and the skills they need to be able to leverage modern technologies like artificial intelligence so they can uniquely add value in their workplaces and remain individually competitive and productive in a fiercely competitive global job market.
Right. My final question to you would be on the US-India Trust Initiative. We've not seen much headway on that because the trade negotiations have really overtaken everything right now. Do you feel that we're falling back on our future technology goals right now?
Well, again, I would encourage us not to lose sight of our long-term objectives. Certainly, when we consider the element of the Trust Initiative around accelerating AI infrastructure, the objective all along was to develop a roadmap by the end of this year, 2025, to expand AI infrastructure in India. That is certainly ongoing. But we are seeing areas where the initiative is starting to deliver real, tangible results. For instance, General Atomics and the Indian company Third Eye are now collaborating to build defense-oriented semiconductors in the silicon carbide part of the market, for instance. So we are seeing active, productive collaborations in the areas of defense and in space. When we look at semiconductors, there are education programs and research programs that have now been entered into between Indian universities and U.S. universities like Purdue to build out curriculum around semiconductor chip design, AI engineering. So we are seeing a lot of tangible results and tangible products from the Trust Initiative. And it's imperative that policymakers sustain these as we move forward.
All right, Stephen Ezell, thank you very much for joining us on the program. On to all the trending stories of the day. Tesla has officially launched its first charging station in India, located at Mumbai's Bandra Kurla complex. The facility features 4 V4 super charger stalls and 4 destination charging stalls as well. Tesla will also launch its second showroom in Delhi's AeroCity on the 11th of August. US President Donald Trump has voiced support for actress Sydney Sweeney and her campaign with apparel brand American Eagle. He called the advertisement fantastic after learning that Sweeney is a registered Republican. The endorsement comes amid backlash directed at both the actress and the brand following criticism that the ad contained racial overtones. Meanwhile, President Trump has come under fire for remarks about his White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. In a recent interview, he praised her appearance and communication style, saying it's that face, it's that brain, it's those lips, the way they move like a machine gun. The comments have sparked backlash online, with critics calling them inappropriate and unsettling. Some users drew parallels to Trump's past association with the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, while others labeled the remarks as creepy and out of touch. A volcano in eastern Russia has erupted for the first time in over 500 years. Experts believe that the eruption was linked to last week's massive earthquake that occurred in the region. The Krashenin-Nikov volcano in Kamchatka threw up an ash plume up to 6 kilometers high overnight, but there was no threat to populated areas. Hours later, another large earthquake in Russia led to tsunami warnings in 3 areas of the peninsula. India came from behind to pull off a 6-run win against England at the Oval in the 5th Test match to tie the series. Mohammad Siraj took 5 wickets to become the joint highest wicket taker for India in a Test series in England. On Final Cut this evening, tens of thousands of protesters marched across the Sydney Harbour Bridge in Australia to voice their opposition to Israel's actions in Gaza despite heavy rains. The protesters shamed Israel and US in their chants and carried placards urging politicians to stop the war. We leave you with these pictures from the protest. That's all for today on Global Lens. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.